Chapter 0 Prologue. One day, the father of the main character told his son that his immortality appeared as a result of receiving his pedigree, and from his mother he got the ability to transform. This is a world where such special people as immortals, transformers, superhumans, magicians live. And in this guy flows the power of two of these four bloodlines at once. The guy was facing the enemy, in torn clothes and burning with blue flames. He told these guys that his current rank in the special forces is NS. Those who did not believe grinned, saying that they considered him a psycho and pointed their weapons at him. Then they started shooting. The guy held the body of one of them in his hands and covered himself with it like a shield. The enemy did not give up and ran towards him using melee with swords. The guy beat off a sword from one of them and began to fight off the others with it, defeating one by one. The girl who was superhuman decided to use telekinesis against the guy and ordered the others to continue firing at him. The guy was able to dodge all the bullets and, continuing to hold the body in his hands, beat off everyone in his path heading towards the girl. She looked at him in horror and could not understand who he was at all. They were standing face to face. There were only a few meters between them. On both sides of the girl was her team with weapons. The guy smiled and said that he forgot to explain to them that NS means that his strength goes beyond the usual standards. First chapter. Someone told him about the world before he was born. It was a completely ordinary, peaceful world. But soon something appeared that changed everything. The world before the appearance of the black hole was completely normal, but now this hole continues to increase in size. The size of this black hole is catastrophic. Just a horror in reality. The entire ancient power of humanity tried to respond, but the number of monsters only increased. This story tells about an abnormal world. A black hole in the earth is a black gate that has a connection with other worlds. On top of the sky, on the surface of the ocean, even in ordinary sidewalks. They appeared everywhere in this world. And also from all these black holes, life forms appeared that were completely different from ordinary people. The intruders began to exterminate people, and when the world began to turn into hell, it was then that they appeared, people who started fighting monsters. Telekinesis, casting spells, freezing, lighting. People who could use various abilities appeared. These are superhumans. People who did not die, even if they were deprived of their hands or organs, were immortal. People who could change their shape, becoming anyone, a bear or even a wolf, were shapeshifters. And there were also ordinary people. But those who could use special skills were magicians. Thanks to the superhumans who repulsed the enemies from the black hole, the world regained calm, and people called the year when the gate appeared the year of horror. And when the situation subsided, people's attention switched to special species. It was said that they spread dangerous molecules, so quarantine and management are necessary. Fears towards them led to a division into special and normal people. Thanks to this process, the immortals became owned by the government, and the shapeshifters colluded with an international company. The superhumans created their own organization and hid using magic. 20 years after the year of horror, today, they are still out there somewhere, hiding that they are a special kind, living among people. One day, when the main character was shopping with his father, standing at the counter with vegetables, the father told his son that he was immortal. The guy was shocked by what he heard. The father said that he was immortal himself, so his blood should have passed to him, and also asked not to tell anyone about it, because even his mother does not know about it. The guy looked at his father taking spring onions and did not understand why he decided to tell him about it right now. In the middle of the supermarket, he knew that immortals had clean skin and a beautiful face. His father fully fit these criteria, but he did not. Father said he didn't look much like him, but still he was immortal anyway, and immortal blood awakens on his 20th birthday. It should be just today at about 11 o'clock in the evening. The guy was amazed that his father talked about it so calmly. The father left the topic and said that they needed to take garlic. The guy said that it was not necessary to take chopped, since mom was going to do it herself, and he probably would have to peel it. But the father asked his son not to talk in any case about what he told his mother, because she does not know who he is, so if she finds out, it could lead to a divorce. The guy asked to talk about it when they leave the store. The main character took a huge bag of groceries and calmly carried it. The father, looking at this, was surprised by the strength of his son, because immortals are born with low strength. So he decided that he trains a lot. Although the guy said that this is absolutely not true, because he does not train much. The guy himself knew where he got such strength from, because he had a second secret, or rather, the first one, so he hid it before he found out that he was immortal, because his mother was a shapeshifter. 2 years later he found out about it. His mother told him about it herself, saying that he was the same and asked him never to tell his father about it in any case. She and her father returned home. where they were met by their mother, who ran to her husband and, after examining the products, kissed her, which her son did not really like to look at. The woman asked her son to sort out the products. He took a bag and began to put them in the refrigerator. Mom asked what he would like as a gift, but he didn't need anything, because he was so very grateful that she gave birth to him. She looked at him with emotion and said that he spoke very beautifully, just like his father. He stood and looked at his parents, who admired him and thought that his father was immortal, and his mother was a shapeshifter. They were special, but he could not understand why these two were hiding their identities from each other. They sat down at the table. Mom brought the cake. They sat together and went to their rooms, wishing each other good night, because it was already night. The main character was lying on his bed and looking at his watch. He realized that it was almost 11 in the evening, and his father said that he would wake up immortal at 11 o'clock. When they were walking home from the store, the guy asked him if it hurt to wake up at all and what he felt at that time. The father said that everything went very smoothly for him. His blood just suddenly warmed up, and then almost immediately cooled down, and as soon as he felt a little cold, all his 5 senses became much sharper than before, and there was absolutely no pain. The guy remembered that when he woke up as a shapeshifter, it seemed to him that he was dying and asked his father if he could really wake up, because his mother is just a person. His father said that he would definitely wake up, because the blood of an immortal is thicker than human blood. He continued to lie on the bed and wondered if it was possible to wake up as an immortal if he had already awakened as a shapeshifter, and also thought what to tell his father if he suddenly did not wake up, but decided that it did not matter and went to bed. When the time came, he felt a hellish pain, falling out of bed. He recalled the words of his father, who said that it did not hurt at all and thought that he had lied to him. He was in so much pain at that moment that he could not stand up and held his head, and sweat was flowing all over his body. Someone told him that there were no invaders or black holes in the world before that, and no one knew about the existence of such people as superhumans or immortals. It was just an ordinary world. This story is about his abnormal life in a normal world. Second chapter. 2 years ago, he woke up as a shapeshifter and looked at himself in the mirror, found that his body had become perfect and pumped up, without any training. At that moment, his mother looked into his bathroom to find out if he was all right, and also to ask how he felt after waking up. The guy was scared and was outraged that she didn't even knock, but told her that he felt like he had much more energy than before, and he also thought that his hearing and sense of smell had also become more sensitive. He also asked her why she didn't warn him that if he wakes up, he will lose all the hair on his body, he will vomit blood countless times, and he will feel hellish pain in his muscles, as if they are being torn apart, because it was possible to warn that he would feel such pain, because then he would be mentally prepared for it. The woman then said that it wouldn't have changed anything anyway, and without his warning, the awakening was still successful, and it won't happen again. The guy breathed a sigh of relief, because he was very worried that this could happen again. He never wants to experience this pain again. During the awakening of the immortal, he continued to lie on the floor and felt severe pain. In the morning he went to the bathroom. His body also hurt. Despite the fact that he is now immortal, nothing has changed outwardly, but from the point of view of the senses, he can now see well in the dark and all the surrounding sensations. Especially his hearing has become too sensitive. Outside the window on the street there was a loud rumor that almost deafened the guy. He covered his ears with his hands and tried to calm down, thinking that he had learned to control his body many times when he became a shapeshifter. Therefore, if he consciously forces himself to think that his ears are far away, then he will be able to control his hearing, and this actually helped. He felt that he had awakened as an immortal and wondered if he would be able to control himself properly. Mother called Gwanik to the table. The guy got out of the bath and went to the kitchen where his parents were already waiting. When he came to the table, he saw a huge plate of food. The guy thought that his family eats a lot. He heard that shapeshifters need more energy than an ordinary person, but his father also ate a lot. He believed that special species just eat a lot. Despite this, the parents did not even suspect each other. The father, looking at the table, decided that there was less food than usual, and asked his wife if she was all right. She replied that there was more rice in the rice cooker that was cooking right now. After that, the father looked at Gvanik and said that he needed to prepare for the civil service exams, because there was a good opportunity. The mother was not very happy because she thought that her son should go to college because he was already 20. Her father told her that college is not so important, but more important are the skills that a person has. A civil servant's job is good because he also studied there. The mother said that she did not think it was bad, but she just did not want her son to enter the state university so early. There was no need for this, because he was smart. Parents rarely disagreed with each other, and immortals usually had jobs related to the government, so the father tried to send his son to a similar position. But the mother probably had completely different plans. After becoming a shapeshifter, Vanek was able to pull up 15 instead of 2 times and not even get tired, because his strength became 3 times greater than that of an ordinary person. His mother was also very strong, thanks to this, but regular training also played an important role. There was also one more thing in which shapeshifters were stronger. Besides physical strength, it was instincts. During a workout in the gym, his mother told him that the shapeshifter's instinct is much stronger than that of a human. Therefore, there will be many cases in his life when his instincts will control him. Although the guy did not feel it at that moment, his mother said that after that there would be situations when it would become a big problem when he found himself in the real world. She told him that he needed to train to control his instincts, so she wants him to go to college and get a job at a company, because his grandfather has connections in the industry that works with shapeshifters, and if he goes to a normal college, she will be able to get him there, and there he will be able to pass basic training for shapeshifters. The parents continued to argue at the table and decided that they should still ask what Gwanek wanted, and not chat among themselves. The guy was sitting eating and looked at his parents, who were staring at him waiting for an answer. Mom asked if he wanted to become a civil servant. The guy thought about it. There was actually something he wanted to do, but he never told his parents about it. After that, he told them that he wanted to enroll in UDT, a special unit of the South Korean Navy. Mom got a little angry and told her son to think again, because she thought he hadn't really thought about it, and told her son that he was crazy. The guy told her that he was already 20, so he was able to reason and make decisions like an adult. The father said that the military is a good option and asked if he made this choice because of the uniform. He said that it would be strange if it were not so, because usually 20-year-old guys are not yet set up to fight for their country. Therefore, this is completely normal, because not all soldiers go to Somalia and fight pirates. He decided that his son could have a wonderful life after training and appointment, because at some point he would still have to join the army and it would be better if he became an officer. The guy asked if he could carry out his plans. Mom said she could, but not now. His father said that he had to pass the civil service exam, and if he passed it, he could just postpone his position and enlist in the military. If he wanted, he could just do something in the defense industry and it would be a bonus if he passed there as an officer. Logically, it seemed impossible to Gwanek, but if we talk about his father, he can do it. After that, the guy said that he would pass the exam. The father said that the exam is not very simple, so he should prepare for it. So he needs to leave the weekend free, and in Hwasong, Gyeonggi, there is a person who will give him intensive lessons, so he will study there. The guy agreed to this condition, and then thought about how far it is. There was an acquaintance of his father's in that place, who worked there on a farm and did not want to go to the city. The guy was already on the bus and thought how good that person was, that for this he had to travel such a long way to get lessons from him. In any case, he never thought that he would take the civil service exam, because his ultimate goal was UDT anyway. But to tell the truth, he did not want to become a military man. The white hole in the earth is a gateway that appeared shortly after the international government coalition was created. After that, the old force was created. If a black hole is a place to exit from, then a white hole is a place to enter. This means that it is possible to enter the world of invaders, called the other side. And in this world there are new metals that were not in this world, as well as new plants and new animals. It was full of new resources. Vanek continued to drive and think about the earth holes that were already in the past. But humanity continued to fight with each other in the squeaks of new resources, and those who were sent to these battles were mostly shapeshifters. After all, their outstanding strength and ability to exercise made them excellent fighters. His mom didn't want him to participate in these battles, so he compromised. He would have fulfilled her wish, as well as his desire to fight, by becoming a soldier. Although initially he did not want to be a soldier, he wanted to do something better. The man to whom Vanek was sent talked to his father on the phone and said that he would prepare him well, and would not regret it, because he was his son, saying that there was no need to worry about this, because he would train him well for the exam. Third chapter. Gwanek finally arrived at the right place. A man met him and asked who he was. Gwanek said he was Yu Yonho's son and gave his name. The man told him that he was not asking about this, because the guy was immortal, but was very well built. The guy said his blood was mixed. The man did not understand how the thick blood of immortals could mix with human blood. Gwanek told him that his mother also has thick blood, so both blood mixed in him. The man considered this guy unique and told him to go after him. Following his father's words, the place where he came to prepare for the civil service exam was a mountain deep in the countryside near Hwaesong in Gyeonggi province. And also the person who met him was his mentor. Gwanek followed the man and thought he was immortal, because his face was quite clean and beautiful. He asked him if there was a temple here or something like that. The man said it was complete nonsense, and the guy couldn't understand why then they were heading to the mountain. They came to the right place, there was a house there. The man asked the guy if he had already tried what he was capable of. Gvanek said that he tried to injure himself and the wound healed pretty quickly. The man said that there is a concept of wound healing in their bodies and they know the basics of healing properties. First of all, it's health. A healthy immortal has good healing power. Secondly, the feeling. If he is sensitive, he feels more pain, but this allows him to quickly recognize it and better control it. And also he will quickly notice when the bone goes wrong or something like that. In conclusion, he told him that the training of health and feelings can increase his healing power. All this time, while the man was talking, he was drawing pictures in the sand to show clearly, and Gvanek could not make out any of his doodle. The guy said he couldn't figure out one thing. They were standing at a place where there were a huge number of knives stuck in the ground, and he did not understand what they had to do with him and why they had come to this place. The man said that he should train his health and learn to manage an immortal body, but the guy still didn't understand anything. Therefore, the man told him that he talks too much and he needs to pass the exam, so he needs to get down to business and not talk. The guy asked how they would study and if he needed a pen with a notebook. The man pointed out the knives to him and said that this was the study, because he was going to enroll in the Immortal Special Forces. Gwanek was surprised and asked what it was. The man was also surprised that Yongho Sunbi didn't tell his son about it. The guy said that he had only heard that this was a civil service exam. The man said that it was like being a soldier in the army, and also said if he did not enroll, then let him leave here. The guy thought about it and realized that his father made the decision for him. But he thought that he could do as he wanted only after he passed this exam. So I told the man that I would do it. The man said that if he didn't want to ruin his clothes, he should change into another one and handed him pink shorts. The guy changed his clothes, stood in front of the knives and thought that nothing had really changed. It was just that the exam topic was not what he expected. The man told him to run faster because his neck is about to give up, sat down on a rock and started drinking tea. Gwanek took a deep breath and started running through all those blades. While he was running, he screamed very loudly from the pain he was experiencing. The man told him not to stop for rest, because when the enemy chases him, he will not be allowed to stop. When Gwanek finished, he fell to the ground and asked to just kill him, because he couldn't stand it all. The man approached him and said that he noticed how he deliberately dodged several blades in the center and said that he had very good reflexes, because the other guys could not dodge anything at all. He looked at the guy's legs, the wounds on which began to heal quickly, and said that his healing ability is simply amazing, and it will accelerate every time he heals from wounds. So he should not avoid the blades, but on the contrary, he needs to step on them so that the wounds become more. He also needs to step on them and specially cut off his leg. The guy was not himself from what he heard and thought this man was just crazy, but he started running on the blades again. In the end, he got tired of it, and he asked how much more he needed to suffer like this. The man said that he needed to do this until he felt a shock and did not understand why he had not received it yet. The guy thought about the fact that he had a shapeshifter's body before he became immortal, and since shapeshifters have strong bodies, this will never cause, even if he does it all his life. Therefore, he asked if there was any other way to achieve the desired result. The man asked how long it would take him to run 50 meters, and Gvanek said that he could manage this distance in about 6 seconds. The man said that there is a distance of exactly 50 meters and if he passes it in 6 seconds, he will pass a training session to adjust the blade. Gwanek thought about it and putting on the hood told him that he would not take his words back and get ready to run. He said he could run 50 meters in 6 seconds, but that's when he runs at a moderate pace. Now it will hurt him as much as possible, but if he blocks all his feelings and runs as fast as he can, then 6 seconds will be easy. He started running on all the blades and after running all 50 meters he fell, with the thought that he had coped, because it was definitely within 6 seconds. The man looked at him and thought he was a very interesting guy, then asked him to run through it again, because he didn't time it. After all this, they moved on to the second training session. The man handed him a collar and told him to put it on his neck, because he would need it for the second training session. The next training session was for holding your breath. When he presses the button of a special remote control, this collar will squeeze Gwanek's neck. After hearing this, the guy immediately began to take it off his neck. He did not understand why he could not just go under the water to hold his breath. The man told him that he was able to run through a field of knives, and now he is going to give up. Diving underwater will not be enough, because this training is to withstand suffocation and everything will end if he loses consciousness during the fight. Just like when working with blades, he pays a lot of attention to loss of consciousness. After the year of horror of the war against special species, ordinary people have learned to resist them, so the opposite should work. They used to train by hanging themselves from trees, but the world has become a better place. Vanek asked what the conditions for passing the exam were. The man said that there were no conditions for this. He would lose consciousness, but he had to endure at least 5 minutes. Also advised not to try to unbutton the necklace strong or try to steal the remote control if he did not want to get a hole in his chest, although this could also be a workout. Then asked the guy if he was ready and started tests. 4th chapter. The necklace began to squeeze the guy's neck. He fell to his knees and grabbed it with his hand trying to take it off. But the man started hitting him with a stick so that he wouldn't do it, because he saw that he was able to cope with it. But if he couldn't cope, he should just switch off. The guy was on his knees, resting his hands on the ground and thinking about when it would all end, because he was sure that 5 minutes had long passed. Then everything around him began to blur. He was already at the limit and was about to lose consciousness. But then there was a click and the necklace turned off. The man did not understand what happened and thought that the battery was dead. The necklace fell to the ground. The guy said he almost died. The man said that he would not die because he is immortal. Vanek asked if they would repeat it again, because he did not pass out, although he thought that he had definitely passed out for 5 minutes. The man said that he was right and called the time, which was 12 minutes and 47 seconds. Vanek lasted this time, although the record was 8 minutes. The man stood and looked at the guy with a smile the way a child looks at a new funny toy. Evening came. The man said that it was time to rest today and the guy needed to eat, because it was inefficient to work hungry, and he needed to be healthy. The guy asked if he needed help with cooking, but the man told him to just sit and wait. Vanek thought that he didn't know how to cook, so he exhaled and just gave up waiting. The man finished cooking and told the guy to eat. Vanek looked at this purple muck and was horrified, asking what was in it, although in fact he did not really want to know. At night, the guy decided to swim in the lake and thought that next time he would have to cook himself, so he should learn how to cook from his mom when he returns. But before that he needs to ask his dad about it. He would call him right now, but he's tired and wants at least a good night's sleep. He returned to the house and found that there was no light. The man was already lying in bed and said that all the bugs would come to the light, and this made him very happy. The bed was on the floor and the guy lay down. The man said that this is a training to kill the sense of touch, because a good sense of touch makes him feel anxious sensations much stronger than others. He said that probably at first the guy will not be able to close his eyes due to the fact that it will not be comfortable. But when he looked at Vanek, he saw that he was already asleep and did not listen to him at all. In the morning, the man called him for breakfast. The guy came to the table and saw the food again, which was not very good looking, but thanked him and sat down at the table. The man said that immortals consume a lot of energy. Vanek asked what kind of training they would be doing today. The man said that today there will be jumps from a cliff. He will have to hold his breath in the air, controlling his feelings, before the upcoming blow. The guy asked him that, based on yesterday's training, the biggest thing an immortal should beware of in battle is shock and pressure from a strong blow. This is shock and pressure from a strong blow from which consciousness is lost. The man agreed with this, and also said that he should be careful that his mobility does not decrease when his legs are cut, so his hands are considered the shield of an immortal. He said that you need to offer your hand to someone who is going to deliver a blow that will make him unable to act, for example, if they hit him on the head or leg. In addition, you should be more careful with a knife than with a pistol, and you also need to be wary of claymores and mines. Vanek listened to him and believed that this information was outdated for a long time. The guy ate for a very long time, so the man told him to hurry up so they could go train. That's how Vanek finished all the training and went home by bus the next day. While he was on the bus, he talked to his father on the phone, asking if his father had given him the right address, because this man forced him to jump from the mountain. The father said that everything is fine because he is immortal and will not die so easily, so he could be rude to his body because that's how he learns his limits. The father said that in any case, the guy is doing well, so he should have a good rest at home. When the guy wanted to know what kind of exam he was taking, his father said he was hanging up and they would talk later. Well, all the guy learned is that his body is solid and nothing will change if he hears the answer now, but today he will rest properly as his father told him. When he comes home, he will take a shower and play PS5, eat food cooked by his mother and sleep in his room without mosquitoes for about 12 hours. It was just the perfect vacation plan for him. The guy came home. Mom said he had to take a shower later and asked him to go somewhere with her. All the plans of the guy collapsed at the moment he looked at his mother in misunderstanding. She said that she had told her father everything and he still had to prepare for college, and she also packed it in a bag and handed it to her son. The guy said that he could study on his own. But then looking at the bag, he was very surprised and did not understand why it was. The woman said that she had found a teacher nearby in the neighboring district and he would live there for 2 days. The guy had a bad feeling about this, but he went where his mom told him. When he was leaving, he asked her if she would set him up. Smiling, the woman said that it was not enough to be just smart, you still need to have a strong body. And at that moment the elevator doors closed. At that moment, he understood everything, because according to his guesses, he was definitely not waiting for college. 5th chapter, the elevator doors opened, and the guy found himself in the gym, which was located in the underground parking lot. A woman came up to him and asked if he was Saul's son. Gwanek said that it was him, and also that he did not know why his mother sent him here. The woman told him that he would study here for 2 days in a row, and his physical potential would go to waste if he used only his brain as a baton. The guy recalled all the trials he had passed earlier and realized that he would not be able to tell the truth here either, and it was damn unfair. Since childhood, the philosophy of upbringing in his mother was simple. If you do not obey her, then she uses physical force, because you need to be responsible for your actions. And when you live with such values for 20 years, you naturally begin to perceive them, because if a guy rebelled against his mother and everything bad was beaten out of him, Gwanek looked at his teacher and realized that rejection didn't work here either, because it was obvious from her look. The woman threw a measuring device into the guy's hands and told him to put it on his wrist and ankle, because he needed to check it. The guy already had a fear of such things. She sent the guy to the treadmill and turned it on to the maximum, starting measurements. Also said that she had heard that the guy did not train himself and considered him because of this garbage. She looked at the readings. His pulse was normal, so the equipment was good, but she was not satisfied with what he was capable of at this level, saying that he does it very lazily, believing that this is due to the fact that in the modern world he has everything he wants. Gwanek didn't like the fact that she was mocking him because she looked about his age, but he remembered that immortals and shapeshifters age slowly and decided that she was older than she looked. He asked how long he still had to run, to which the woman told him not to stop and run, because cardio is necessary first, because it is necessary to consistently improve his body. She wanted to make him reborn from head to toe. The guy didn't really like these words, and he said that he didn't want a second mom. The girl grinned and said that apparently he likes to joke. Time passed. It was already evening on the street, and the guy was still running. The woman told him not to stop and said that even her grandmother would not be tired after this. Looking at the time, the guy saw that it was already 4 o'clock, evening. He had been running for 14 hours, 4 minutes, 30 seconds. He was terribly scared of the fact that he would have to run all night without a break, because even during the Immortals training there was time to rest. The woman said that fighting is easy, trusting your body without training is just an amateur level. The treadmill had a screen on which a woman showed him a stretch, which I won't do later, and told him to remember, because he should train his flexibility since a rigid body is very bad. The guy looked at it and couldn't understand how a human body could bend like that. He wanted to ask her one question, but realized that he was out of breath, because even with the body of a shapeshifter, running for 14 hours in a row without a break suffocates. He had to keep track of the time every time, because the woman periodically asked him, and he also had to memorize the video that was going in front of him and listen to the teacher's explanation. He considered it a very brutal training, but he believed in himself and was confident that he could withstand it all. While he was running, he remembered the Immortal's words that it is not enough to be able to block feelings, because if too many feelings are blunted, his movements will be disorderly. It is necessary to clear his mind of the feeling that he wants to block, and at the same time it is necessary to make the other more accurate. In other words, he needs to learn how to multitask feelings. Gwanek was thinking about time, memorizing movements from the video, and listening to the teacher while running. In a split form, these were 4 different tasks, but running was performed by his body, and training and video did not happen at the same time. Leaving aside the sense of time, it was not very difficult to perform the rest of the tasks. In the end, he ran for 24 hours and was glad that it was finally over. The woman said that his brain is fine. She needs to relax the body because flexibility is mandatory. She asked if he remembered the video she was going to show, so he needed to keep an eye on what she was doing. The guy looked at her and admired her flexibility. She said that it was his turn, while telling him not to overdo it because flexibility takes time. She also said that they would increase the amplitude of movement little by little, repeating the same stance every day, thereby they would slowly tear his muscles. The guy got up on the mat and began to do what she was doing, and realized that healing after muscle rupture would increase his flexibility. So he decided that he did not need to do it a little because immortals heal quickly after injuries. He only needed to endure short-term pain. After that, the guy bent down sharply and felt hellish pain. The woman got scared and started shouting at him because she was talking about him not to overdo it and asking who taught him to be so naughty. The guy laughed and said that he did it anyway and asked for help to get up. 6th chapter. The woman said she had had enough today and they needed to eat. The guy came and saw a whole pig asking if they would eat it. She said it was for her and pointed to another one that was meant for him. She began to tell me that eating is also a workout and said to get used to accumulating enough energy to move later. The guy looked at her and decided that she was a bear that had come out of hibernation. They started eating, and during this she told him that 2 days a week is too little, because it's not even enough to learn the main points. The guy admired how delicious the food was, because it was just a piglet fried with some seasonings. He decided that it was because he hadn't eaten all day, so it was so delicious for him. The woman told him that it was necessary to eat everything, because if he left even a little, he would die. Then she was going to leave and told him to wash up after eating and go to bed. The guy finished his meal. He liked this place more than the previous one, because it's better here than sleeping with mosquitoes in the forest, and unlike the stick teacher, he can use the phone, so he decided to call his mom. Mom started asking how her son was doing and said that she had told the woman dozens of times not to treat him lightly just because they had known her for a long time. But she was worried about him anyway, so she said if the woman was too soft with him, he should tell her that to make it more severe. Then her father came and she said she was busy, hanging up. On the 2nd day after training, he realized something. If immortal training is a mentality, then shapeshifter training is ignorant actions. The woman exhausted him with various workouts, asked how many kilograms with a barbell he could lift and what were his biggest 3-1 p.m. He realized that signs to exceed your limits are the essence of training, and science is added to shapeshifter training, with the use of many devices and electronic applications, as in the Immortals training, where a device was used that strangled him. The conclusion he came to during the training was the same. The woman said he had bad reflexes. She told him to lift a barbell weighing 60 kilograms. The guy did not make it difficult, because the strength of the shapeshifter is 3 times the strength of an ordinary adult man. The woman told me to follow her, and then pointed to a narrow long board, under which it was high enough, and told me to run along it with a barbell. The guy decided that this was the second part of the crazy training, after training with blades. She said that he needed to catch the balance, keep the center of balance, and use his strength for the rest, and also said that he would repeat it until it started to work out. Vanek went to the beginning of the board and decided that they used the corners of the basement for this, and it was long. The width of the board was only half of his foot. He asked if there was any fear that he might fall. The woman said that the probability of injury when falling from a height of 3 meters is low, although he should not run, preparing for a fall, since the primary task of a shapeshifter should be to protect the body, because it is not profitable if he is wounded on the battlefield, since their bodies do not recover unknowingly like immortals. The guy exhaled and decided that he just needed to get it over with. The teacher who was watching Netflix behind him said that you need to take care of your body, but an immortal like him quickly restores even broken bones. So he started running, getting ready to fall. All his 5 senses were enhanced. His sensitive sense of touch could feel the pressure on his running shoes and find a sense of balance. Although most shapeshifters have insane reflexes, they couldn't compare to immortals who specialize in feelings. He could handle the task with complete ease, because there was no chance that his leg would be pierced by a blade. After successfully completed it, the woman said to do it 2 more times, one way and back. The width of the board was 4 centimeters, and the length was 50 centimeters, but the guy completed it without bending down once, so she decided to raise his level and pulled the wire. She started talking about how the wooden plank was just a small step, and she also thought that he was not himself, looking at his body, but decided that he was born with a good physique because he had a good balance. She also laid mattresses under the wire and told him to fall on them, because if during the fall he decides to grab the wire, his skin will tear. Wanek thought that after he got used to the start, he would have to run while carrying a barbell, but he was not afraid of this, because it was lightweight compared to the Immortals training. But in terms of complexity, it was a hell of a level course, because the wire was harder and harder. When he took the first steps, he realized that it was solid and did not shake much, and also it was not a fall from a cliff, and there would be no hurricane, and there was a mattress on the floor. It was not scary, so he tried to just run. But after a short distance, he slightly lost his balance and decided that he should go slower using light steps, as well as bouncing. That day, the teacher of magazine looked at him as if he was more interesting than the video she was watching, and made him run along the same line with the bar all day. The next day, the woman told him that they would see each other next week. The guy said goodbye and got into the car where his mother came to pick him up. Mom asked if he was interested and why she was forcing him to do it. She just couldn't bear to watch her son being beaten, so she decided that he should know the limits of his current body, because now he was too weak. The guy was very surprised that his mother considered him weak, because if you tell his classmates about it, they will faint from shock. But since the situation was like this, he decided that he could still practice, and when he went to UDT, he could at least help and not interfere, although the Immortal Special Forces that the teacher stick was talking about bothered him. They arrived home, and Mom set the table. The guy ate everything that was on the table. The woman was very surprised, asking if her son had been starving for several days. Wanik said he found out how valuable her cooking was after 4 days. He also told her that he wanted to learn how to cook, telling her that male chefs are in fashion now, and asked her to teach him this for the sake of his future wife. The guy was thinking about what he would do at the next allotment, what kind of training was waiting for him, and whether there would be some new kind, or it might be more difficult than what he did last time with the Immortal. 7th chapter. After a 4-day break, the teacher stick said that the training before that was just basic training, offered separately from the entrance requirements. In other words, the blade field, fainting resistance, and cliff jumping were now mandatory courses. Wanik completed the last course by throwing himself off a cliff. He believed that because of Shapeshifter's training, despite the painful part, this course has become much better. But the problem was that it was just basic training. The man said that one of the advantages of immortality was regeneration. When a gun is fired at him, this is normal since the bullet either passes through the body, or the body pushes the bullet out and regenerates flesh and skin. But such a weapon that does not use firepower is very bad. After all, it takes a lot of time to regenerate an amputated limb. He also said that the guy can afford to receive attacks that cause damage within a short distance, but he should avoid such attacks. The man took the blade and began to swing it. The guy decided that these actions related to his words, and he believed that he was swinging like a murderer. This training was a continuation of learning how to wield a blade, so the guy had not to avoid the blade, but to reflect it by taking the blade. The guy started dodging, and the man told him that the purpose of this training was to avoid serious injuries, instead of which it was necessary to get minor ones, and it would all be useless if he avoided everything. He also saw that the guy was a bit athletic, so he decided to start with a light one. Therefore, he struck a blow with a blade at the guy, saying that if he took hold of his thigh or calf muscles, then he should take a kick with his shin or deflect it to the side. The man continued to strike with the blade and said that the guy regenerates well, so he continued. After some time, when the guy had a lot of injuries, the man said that anemia is one of the weaknesses of immortality, so they carry blood and transfusion bags with them, but it's better to stop the bleeding in advance. Then he said it was time to take a break, milking in order to have a snack. Wanik said that this time, he would cook. When they came to the house, the guy started cooking, and after a while, he served spaghetti with meat sauce according to his mother's recipe, who said that if he wanted to cook delicious food, he should use a lot of sauce. The man started eating and said that it was very tasty, and said that cooking is also a kind of training to dull the sense of taste. The guy was glad that he liked his food. After the meal, they went back to repeat what they were doing so that the guy got used to taking blows with a wedge on the arm muscles. The man ran away and pierced Gwanik's stomach because it was time for organ regeneration training. Since the regeneration of organs takes a long time, then basic strength training is mandatory. The guy was sitting on the ground and couldn't figure out how the man did it, because he didn't have any premonitions, so he couldn't dodge. The man said that he hid his tracks, because if the enemy has sensitive senses, then you need to know how to hide your energy. Wanik told him that if he was going to make a hole in his stomach, he should have at least warned him about it. The wound almost healed, which surprised the man very much, and then he asked if the guy wanted to learn how to hide his energy, to which he agreed. 2 days later, he went to another teacher's gym. The woman met him with pistols in her hands, saying that today was a survival game. She was holding a modified weapon made of gas and specialized bullets. After that, she told him to dodge and started shooting. The guy started running away from the bullets, and the woman said that guns are very dangerous because hitting him will cause severe damage to his body. So he must move while she is aiming and try to find shelter. But if he does not find it, he must run so fast that she cannot properly aim at him. She advised him not to run in a straight line, but to try to do it in zigzags, not allowing another person to predict his movements, and if he got under the opposite action, he should put strength into his muscles and change direction, and also use tension to lift his body. She also told him not to take damage, because just one hit can make him helpless, so if he is going to take damage, he should train him in a place where it will not be critical for him. The guy remembered that preventing the loss of mobility was the same as that of the Immortals. Training on both sides taught him that the fighting styles of Immortals and Shapeshifters are adapted to their characteristics. Neither of them taught him how to fight, but rather how to survive in any situation in which he might find himself. Immortals need to be wary of weapons such as knives, which can cause damage in a given radius. As for weapons, a shotgun was much more dangerous than a rifle. On the other hand, shapeshifters welcomed those who attacked with knives, and all they had to do was hold on and hit, because the reflexes and strength of the shapeshifter allowed them to react like that. The shotgun was much more convenient for them, because its range was not great. But if you get close to it, the game will be over. You can just move further away, then it will be impossible to get into the body. Shapeshifters cannot regenerate, so their movements are designed so as not to get injured. The training was over. Gwanek was sitting on the floor surrounded by a huge number of bullets. The woman told him to get up and run through the wire. The guy was thinking that physical fitness was much better than a simple stupid self-mutilation. The guy started the exercise with the wire when suddenly he felt a huge beast behind him and fell down on the mats. A woman stood next to him and asked if he felt something. 8th chapter. Gwanek asked what it was. The woman explained to him that this is called a wild thirst for blood, and she saw that he felt it. The guy asked her not to do so much because he was so scared that it seemed to him as if his heart would burst, and he didn't like it a bit. She said it was perfectly normal, and if he had something similar, it would make him feel better. At that moment, the beast appeared behind her. After that, she told him to keep training. The hellish shapeshifter training has begun. But 2 days later, the guy stopped falling to the ground while running along the wire, and also figured out how to resist the teacher's thirst for blood. Thanks to his heightened immortal senses, he was able to sense the sensation of bloodlust with his 5 senses, and used his 6th sense to deal with it. It was necessary to bend the lower abdomen and hold it, then he could cope with it and walk along the wire with a barbell. His classes continued to alternate between shapeshifter and immortal, and the immortal's training was still akin to a hellish punishment. In addition to organ regeneration, he had to train with axes, spears, arrows, and even traps, which he had to be especially careful with. The immortal told the guy that if you step into one of the traps, it will cause terrible pain. And when the pain does not stop, the brain begins to work with difficulty. And he also said that usually immortals fight simply by getting injured, so it's tedious to get used to pain, because pain makes it difficult to think logically. Therefore, Gwanek had to use poison later. Shapeshifter's training wasn't much different either. The guy had to train, starting with weighted belts and vests, also adding weight with sandbags on his wrists and ankles. He also continued to practice dodging bullets and walking on wire, and the rest of the time he trained his body with dumbbells. There were also changes. In the midst of his training, his father went on a business trip for 10 days, and in addition to holes all over his body, the teacher stick also taught him to own ordinary weapons and martial arts, saying that the guy learns quickly. That's how it happened, but that didn't mean it was difficult for him. The guy thought it was because he had the physique of a shapeshifter and reflexes, but he learned quickly. On the other hand, the teacher guide taught him to shoot weapons, saying that it is useful to study martial arts and he can do it on his own. He will succeed if he watches several video lessons on this topic, but also said that learning to shoot is very difficult, since it required him to use organs' feelings. But the guy was of mixed blood with the special 5 senses of immortals, so it was very easy for him to learn how to shoot. So 2 months passed. The guy was at home. The parents were sitting on the couch. The father was very praising his son for being very strong. The parents started praising each other again. At that moment, Gwanek was thinking that his parents' relationship was flourishing every day, and they should have made his younger brother or sister. The guy went to the bathroom. Standing in front of the mirror and looking at himself, he wondered why he still had no girlfriend. His standards were not so high that they were at all. He didn't even want someone healthy and perfect like his mother, but just someone cute and mature, but at the same time alluring. It would be great for him if she could cook and had the same hobbies as him. If he could add something else to it, he would want her to look good in jeans, and if he could add even more, He would want her to be smart and know what she wants to do. The guy's mom got a call. The woman said she would go to Hemin's mom. Wanek's father said it was getting late, but she answered him by saying that the woman's child is a high school graduate, so she may be stressed. The man understood the situation and supported her. Wanek got out of the shower and shouted to his mom that he couldn't find a hairdryer, but he didn't find anyone. He picked up his phone. There was a message that there would be an exam tomorrow. It hadn't been that long since he had last taken the big exam, but he felt strange. His friends were surprised that he was not going to go to university after passing the CSAT. But the guy did not consider it a shame that he did not use good grades, because he was never going to go to college. His path was a foregone conclusion. 9 years ago, when the great black hole called the Hughes Gate opened, Wanek was crushed under the rubble of a collapsed building. But as soon as he saw the warrior fighting countless invaders, he decided that he wanted to be like him. His mother would be upset if she found out about it. After all, she said she wanted him to lead a normal life on the day he woke up. Wanek's mom Kang Sol went outside and met with her son's teacher, telling her that she came out under the pretext that she needed to meet with the mother of a student who lives in the neighboring district. The women started talking about Gwanika. Mom never asked about her son, because she wants everything to be fine for polishing. Because the mixed blood of a human and a shapeshifter usually does not have half the abilities of an ordinary shapeshifter, so she could not ask about him because she was worried. At that time, Gwanik's father was talking on the phone with his son's immortal teacher. He told him that his son is non-standard. The women kept talking and the mother said that her son shouldn't be outstanding or even good. She just wanted him to be able to stand up for himself against groups of mad scientists or something like that. The woman heard that recently a group of mad scientists tried to combine different species to create something superior in strength to pureblood, calling it irregular, but they failed and eventually they created grotesque monsters with the strength of both parents. And there was only one conclusion from these actions: whether it was an immortal, shapeshifter, Superman or someone else, if he has offspring with a human, then he simply weakens the blood of the species. But the woman said that Kang Solo was lucky because she and her husband hit the jackpot in the form of their son. The man at this time continued to talk on the phone. The teacher told him that his son is very talented. He is just a genius with talents that he had not seen before, because he was even able to teach him to hide his energy. Saul continued to listen as the woman praised her son. She said that the guy has an excellent pedigree, and also his head worked well. He is very smart and talented, because he even learned the thirst for blood. Both parents could not believe the words of the teachers, but they continued to assure that their son is a talented genius. The parents were just delighted, because they knew that they had the best son, so they expected this from him. 9th chapter. In the morning, Gwanik woke up and went to the kitchen where his mother was. He wished her good morning and asked where Dad was. The woman replied to him that his father had gone on business, and he should go wash and sit at the table. A guy washed his face, and when he returned to the kitchen he saw a huge amount of different food, so he asked in honor of what such a feast was today. Mom told him that today was a very important day. After that, the guy remembered that today is the day of passing the civil servant exam. Mom started telling him that in order for the brain to work well, he needed glucose. Glucose has a sweet taste, and it also dissolves well in water, thereby supplying the body with energy. She said that today he needs to have a hearty meal, but so that the food has time to digest, because if he overeats, he will start to feel sleepy or he will start to feel bad, and this will serve as an obstacle to successfully passing the exam. Gwanik listened to his mother's words and thought that his training was absolutely not for brain activity, but for survival. However, in reality, this will become an exam for special employment, where fresh blood will rage. The guy thanked his mother for the food and began to get ready for the exam. He was so ready that he even dreamed about everything he learned in his dreams, because he was beaten on the ankle and organs were pierced there. Mom was worried and confused, but she said that if he didn't pass, his father would be very upset. The guy looked at his mother and thought that she didn't like the idea of him becoming a civil servant. But she also didn't want him to fail this exam. She seemed to be trying to support him, but at the same time worried about him as a werewolf. He told her not to worry, because he knew that he was also immortal. The woman said that if he fails, he will have to meet her in the ring, so he must remember what he would like to erase from his memory. So if he does not want to snatch from her, he should just pass the exam. Gwanik left the apartment and went to the elevator humming a melody, because, in his opinion, music is the best medicine for nerves. When the elevator door started to open, he noticed a girl he had always liked. Since he got the keen feelings of an immortal, he started singing a love song. The girl looked at him with a smile and told him not to sing when he proposed to her, because, in her opinion, a handsome man does not have to be a singer either. Gwanek got into the elevator and turned away from the girl and asked why she was interested in it at all. She asked if he was going to confess his love to her. He said he wasn't going to, reminding her that he had said what an ideal type he had. The girl began to say that such beauties as she, with a good figure and brains, still need to look for. The guy started to get out of the elevator and tell her not to say such words on the street, because people might misunderstand her, and also said that he didn't really want a gift in the form of 2 bracelets made of iron, and he also disagreed about her brains, because, in his opinion, she also forgot to mention greed. The girl ran after him to the street and asked him to wait, asking where he was going. He said that she should not follow him, and also that he was going to take the civil servant exam. They reached the bus stop and he told her to go to school. The girl said that she is now in her senior year, and next year she enters the university. Gwanek congratulated her and advised her not to waste her life on drinking when she gets an ID card. The girl was indignant and said that he was only a year older than her, so he could not speak like that, and also said that she was now in a girls' school, but the university would choose an ordinary one, so a rabid pack of wolves could attack such a beauty like her. The guy told her to study first, and then think about it. The girl suggested that he start dating, because he would then be able to help her with her studies along the way, because it's very good when a guy studies well. But when Gwanek got on the bus, he told her not to throw words around and not scare off his future wife. And she, not satisfied with his answer, just gave him the middle finger on both hands. At that moment, the guy realized that the girl's behavior had not changed at all and smiled. At 7 o'clock 50 minutes he arrived at the right place, deciding that it was early, because the exam would start at 9 o'clock. Besides, he did not know where to go. He approached the girls who worked there and asked about the exam for special employment. At that moment, a huge man approached him and, looking with disbelief, asked the guy for a statement. Then, introducing himself as Gwanek, he checked him and told him to take the elevator to the 9th floor. After Gwanek went up to the right floor, he was met by a girl and asked if he also asked for his application for the exam, and after checking it, she told him to go ahead until he stumbled upon a door at the end of the corridor. That's where he needed to enter. The guy thought that it was too dreary for the exam and walked down a long corridor, reached the door with a sign on which it was written that this was the place of the exam for special employment. He wondered if there was good sound insulation, because he thought there would be a lot of noise and blood. He was very surprised that the exam was decided to be held in the very center of Yoido. Then he took a deep breath and decided that he needed to get ready, and also he was not surprised if after he opened the door, knives would fly at him, and considered that evading them could become a condition for passing to the place. Whatever it was, he was sure that the same torments awaited him as in training. After he opened the door a little and looked inside, he found that there was nothing that he had thought up for himself. There was not even close. He went into the office, where a bald man was waiting for him, who told him to come up to him and show a statement. The guy, looking at the bald head of the man, thought that a remedy for baldness from materials found in the white hole had been invented for a long time, although he had a shelf, and there were also cheaper options since the man did not use it. Apparently it was a fashion for baldness. Gwanek handed him a statement and an identity card. After that, the man said that his number was 48th and he needed to go there. It was all completely different from what the guy imagined, because he didn't have all these tables and training. But he decided that he had to wait, because he couldn't know what would happen when the exam started, because even that man with a knife might attack him. So he shouldn't relax after all. You need to be ready for any turn. One person after another began to fill the empty tables. The man asked if everyone had taken their pens and were ready for the start of the exam. At that moment, Gwanek realized that he was actually going to take a written exam and held out his hand, saying that he did not take a pen. The man looked at the guy with displeasure and asked who he was at all, although the guy himself also did not know the answer to this question. Gwanek immediately sensed something was wrong, but there was no one to complain. 10th chapter, the preparation for the exam, which began in confusion, turned into a terribly painful training. Since Gwanek had such a fate, he decided to invest in full, sincerely trying to pass the exam. But the exam started in 10 minutes. He came to it the very first and sat in shock for 50 minutes. Everything went wrong as planned, and the last hope said goodbye to the guy. The man handed Gwanek a pen. He looked at her from all sides and understood that she was completely ordinary and apparently true. The assessment would be written. The guy looked around. Even the situation around him was the same as at the final exam and did not understand that everyone was sitting around and repeating. He would like to ask someone to look, but decided that he would be considered an idiot. He also noticed that everyone had a rather unusual appearance, and some could be sent to idols right away. Most of all, one guy caught his eye, who had very good hands, and he would be a good fit for an advertising model. The guy saw that Gwanek was looking at him and pointedly turned away. The main character was surprised by this action and hoped that he did not think anything strange. A man and a woman came into the office and put screens on all sides of the Gvanek. The examiner said that now everyone will receive their examination sheets. The guy looked at these screens and decided that they were being made for hypersensitive immortals. This justified such a large distance between the tables. When the man started handing out packages with sheets, some guy came into the office, apologizing for being late, saying that he overslept. They told him that his number was 50 and told him to sit down. Gwanek received his package. Opening it, he looked at the exam sheet, thinking that it would be simple. But he was wrong. Time passed, there was silence around. Gwanek was holding his head and couldn't write anything, because it was very difficult for him. He would rather run around with knives, showing his acrobatic tricks, instead of all this. But still, after reading the test, he found that it was not so difficult. After all, the first question asked what should be done when receiving a through wound in the leg the size of 101 coin. He immediately chose the fourth answer option, which said that it was necessary to stop the bleeding. After I thought that other options in this situation may be more important if a person belongs to a special race, but since the wound is the size of 101 coin, it cannot be called large, and assuming that the weapon was of a material type, it is best to start with stopping the blood. The teacher told him that the first thing to do was to stop the bleeding, otherwise a state of shock would occur, and then it was necessary to conduct hemostasis and find shelter. Remembering these words, he was sure that to prevent bleeding, a small wound would not threaten the life of an immortal. In the second question, it was asked how much blood, as a percentage, you need to lose in order for a state of shock to occur. The guy remembered how the teacher dripped on his brain due to the fact that he had never had a shock and said that immortals are similar to people in the basics, so he chose the third answer, where 15 to 20% was indicated. The next question asked what to do if it was impossible to avoid swinging a knife, what should be done. The guy thought about it and replied that he would put out his hand, because he had heard about the importance of mobile power much more than he would like. He continued to answer questions and suddenly remembered a movie he had watched a long time ago. It told about a man from the slums who took part in a quiz where there was a huge amount at stake, and he guessed the answers based on his life experience. This exam asked the exam takers what they went through, having the body of an immortal, and how much they know. Gwanek's level of knowledge was at the level of hell. The advice given by the teacher and the information obtained from his own experience prompted him the right answers. Therefore, his training was definitely a study. The guy answered all the test questions and turned the sheet over, found that on its reverse side there was another question that required a written answer. There it was necessary to write how to kill an immortal, and Gwanek knew the answer to it. He finished and asked how much time had passed. The examiner looked at him and said that there was still a whole hour left, deciding that the guy had given up. Then said that those who had finished could leave the classroom, leaving the answer form with the exam sheets on their desk. Gvanek left the auditorium and met the girl he saw at the entrance. She asked if he had read what was written on the first page of the question sheets. After a positive answer, told him to give his consent, asking him to do it without mistakes. After that, she asked if he was a half-breed and smilingly said that she would hope for his success. Gwanek smiled and decided that he had been given the green light, although the girl was a little different from his ideal type. Night came. The bald man was checking all the works. Checking the work of Gvanek, he found that all the answers were correct, and the written answer indicated strangulation, freezing, burning, and tearing apart. All this was dangerous for the immortal, and loss of consciousness as a result of respiratory tract infections and freezing with liquid nitrogen, and burning in the fire, because burns of the whole body make proper activity of the immortal impossible, as well as tearing apart, because the probability of regeneration in this case is negligible. You can endlessly describe ways to kill an immortal. There is no definite answer to this question, because most immortals have a strong immunity to security, so you need to take into account all deadly weapons and situations. The essence of the last question was that the body of an immortal is capable of regeneration, but it is still real to die, and knowing this, you can significantly reduce the probability of death, even without memorizing all the ways to eliminate an immortal. The man heard that this guy was born from a human and immortal, and although his physical abilities could pump up, but he had brains. He checked the test and began to evaluate the first impression of him. The guy did not look like an immortal, came before everyone else and stared at one point for an hour, and then left before everyone else, while not bringing a pen to the exam. Half a month later, the guy's mom was in the kitchen, cooking. Gwanek received a message about the successful passing of the exam. He immediately informed his mom about it. However, he did not just pass it, but took first place in the written exam for a civil servant. When mom found out about this, she immediately stuck a knife into the board and called her husband to inform him that they had the first place, so she asked him to buy his top-class beef. The guy was very happy with what he heard and decided that today he would eat to the brim. In the evening, Yang-ho returned home. His son ran to him here, looking at the packages that the man brought, in anticipation of a delicious dinner. They set the table and began to celebrate the successful passing of the Gwanek exam. The parents didn't even doubt their son's abilities. The questions turned out to be much easier than the guy expected, and all thanks to his teacher, whom he considered very cool. My father said that since the results have come out, there will be an interview soon. Mom was interested in which department their son would go to, but the father said he didn't know for sure. But he thought he would start with a state-owned enterprise under the Ministry of Administrative Security. The woman didn't notice anything because the man was behaving as usual, but it seemed to the guy as if he was trying to evade the answer. Gwanek did not ask why the government in Old Force chose immortals and what immortal civil servants do. There were a lot of questions, but he knew that they would not be answered to him, so he only asked his father for advice for an interview. But he replied that he did not know anything. 11th chapter. Soon after the joyful news about the first place for the completed test, a message came with the date of the interview. The interview itself will take place in the same building. And the father did not give the guy any advice, saying that you need to show your individuality at the interview, so the guy should answer clearly and clearly. Gwanek put on a suit and went to the interview. At the exit, his mother saw him off and wished him good luck. The guy pressed the elevator button and began to examine himself in his glass door, believing that in this form you can go straight into show business. The same girl he met in the elevator was walking down the corridor. She was amused that the guy was admiring himself. Gwanek decided that they had started to run into her quite often and decided that she was following him. The girl said that it wasn't boring at all and she was just passing by. The guy said that even though it's the weekend, but it's still better for the girl to sit down for textbooks at this time, and began to leave. The girl told him in the wake that he would be able to swing his rights when he became her tutor, and then said that this suit really suits him. The guy turned around and smiled. Gwanek arrived at the building and entered the waiting room for applicants. Looking around, he noticed that all the people tried very hard and memorized their speech. He decided that it was necessary to read more of other people's interviews. Then he noticed again the prince who was sitting next to him during the test. The guy looked at Gwanek again mysteriously and pointedly looked away. Gwanek didn't like the fact that he did it again and decided that this time he would sit away from him, and it wouldn't be at all because he didn't want them to be compared. Everyone was waiting for their challenge. Then a man came out and called number 48. Gwanek went into the office. A guy with very pale skin and fiery hair was sitting in the jury. He immediately decided that his call sign was a candle. There was also a girl with a square from the first floor, whom he had already seen. Next, the girl asked a question about what prompted him to apply to their company. Gwanek thought that if he told them that his father made him, he would fly out of there with a whistle, so he decided to improvise, answering that he was interested in finding out his capabilities in such a difficult exam, and also he wanted to fulfill his dream. The guy with red hair was interested in his answer and asked him to tell more about what kind of dream he was talking about. Gwanek said he wanted to fight for the sake of their people and homeland. After this answer, the guy asked the question of what sacrifices he was willing to make for the sake of a comrade in battle. Gwanek said that everything depends on the situation, because he will find the most effective way out of a difficult situation. After he said it, he decided that it sounded too defiant. Then came a series of obvious questions. The girl asked who he would save first of all if his mom and girlfriend were drowning. He replied that he thought he would save both, because he knows how to swim well. The guy asked what he would do if he had one bullet left and there were two targets. He replied that he would shoot one, and throw a gun at the second, thereby defusing it. If you think about it again, maybe his answers were not quite obvious, but anyway, the interview came to an end. A few days later, Gwanek did what he played on the phone and slept a lot. Mom noticed that her son had been doing a lot of loafing lately after the interview and asked if he had any plans, because he should remember that if he failed, then a boxing sparring with her was waiting for him. The guy said that in fact he has plans with himself because he decided to devote this day to living, or rather to eat, sleep, and have fun. Mom looked at her son with a terrifyingly calm look while clenching her fists. At that moment, the guy suddenly wanted to do something, and he asked where they could go, offering to go to the mountains. But Mom told him to leave the room to talk. She began to tell him that he needed to be very careful because the instincts of werewolves are very dangerous, and if they take over, then trouble can happen, which most often is a beating. Another woman mentioned a story about a werewolf who cries on a full moon, saying that one werewolf could not cope with his instincts and began to howl under the moon. And then it was just a full moon, so if he can't restrain his own desires, he should just go outside and scream. Then it will become easier for him. The guy said that if you believe the news, magicians and superhumans usually cause the most problems. Besides, he hadn't heard of anyone ever howling late at night. Mom said that there is still a way to overcome your desires. It's self-control. The guy remembered that after awakening his abilities, his mother often took him to the mountains with her and decided that this was also a kind of training. Mom went on to say that there is a second way. This is stress relief. The remaining energy can be spent on exercises. She did not like the fact that her son would have to live somewhere for a whole month during orientation. She was sure that he was accepted and suggested that he postpone his appointment for the time being and do what he really wants, as his father told him. But the guy still went to the company. He was congratulated on the final passage and told to read the documents carefully, and if any questions suddenly arise, he will be able to ask them. The guy started reading the document, so it was said about the 5-week practice and orientation. He was very interested in what he would be taught there, since it would take more than a month, and also what kind of cohabitation during the internship period. Reading further, he saw the annual salary of an intern in the amount of 65 million won, covering the costs of physical training, awarding bonuses, covering cultural and entertainment events and daily expenses, providing a workplace nearby after the end of the internship, covering the costs of other activities, various privileges and assistance, exemption from military service after 18 months of work, although he didn't want to be a military man. He decided that it was just a crazy company that was disrupting the entire working ecosystem of South Korea. The girl with the square asked if he had any questions. Vanek asked if he could show these documents to his parents. She asked if his father was immortal, and after receiving a positive answer, she said that if he wanted to see his mother through an iron grate for the rest of his life, he could calmly tell her everything. She seemed very nice when she talked about such scary things. That's why the guy couldn't tell his mom anything. But these conditions and relationships were enough to melt the icy heart of a man. He came to his mother and said that he wanted to try to become the head of a state corporation that is part of the Ministry of Administrative Security, saying that he believes that young people who have a bright future ahead and who will lead the country should have similar aspirations. He thought to himself that he wanted to work a little in a company that recognized his talent, and it wasn't because of money or an apartment. Mom was a little upset, but she said that he speaks well and said she was glad that he was her son, judging by the fact that his phrases did not infuriate her. The guy thought that two bloods had successfully mixed in him, because werewolves have instincts that are hard to control, and immortals have heightened feelings. The instincts of the former can manifest themselves in a very acute form, and among the latter there are particularly sensitive people. He didn't belong to either of them. It was easy for him to cope with his instincts thanks to the internet, and as for the high sensitivity of the immortals, he was great at sleeping anywhere and eating anything. Therefore, you should not worry about him. Wherever he went and whatever he did, he had complete confidence in his abilities.